All right, Nevada. I think we are live. So we have a big game, home stretch of the season. I'm pretty fired up for this one. I think the easy thing to do is compare Michigan's game against Penn State, but the truth is, it's very different when you're playing on the road at Happy Valley. So last I saw, the point spread was at minus 15.5. Thoughts on that spread and kind of where you see Ohio State as far as its performance today?
Well, I've got kind of mixed emotions right now in the game. History and everything about the game. From a gambler's perspective, just looking at the recent track of these games up in Happy Valley, it's screaming that it's going to be a closer game than people think. They always play us tough. They have played us tough. Now, typically those games have been at night. This game's a day game, so it'll be a little bit different, but it's still going to be loud. If you look at our offensive line, as good as it's been, our interior guys have had a little trouble with communication sometimes, especially in pass protection. And I think it's going to be a very difficult environment for us. I think it's going to be unlike anything we've seen for some of these guys. It's not like Michigan State. This is going to be a tough place to play. Now, on the counterbalance of that, I know that this is kind of a statement game for Ryan Day. This game's personal for Ryan Day for a lot of reasons. Yeah, he's heard the criticisms about Ohio State not having played anybody. Last week they won 54-10, but they had lots to yell about all week in practice. So it's not like they're coming into this game, unprepared or unfocused or without an axe to grind. So I've kind of got two betting things kind of going on either side on this, and so my bold prediction was 31-21. Ohio State wins. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's 62-0 and it's over by halftime and it's all laughable. But I can't get over the fact that Franklin's been able to get worse teams than this up to play against Ohio State, and some pretty good Ohio State teams have struggled up there. So I'm going to stick with my 31-21 and hope that everybody's laughing at me at the end for my lack of total belief that we blow these guys off. Because the only team that I dislike, I dislike Michigan more than anybody. But second is Penn State for me. It's not Notre Dame. It's not. I don't even I don't even
I'm
care
the
that much
same.
about Notre Dame. But yeah, Penn State I just cannot stand. And Franklin, I can't stand everything about Franklin. So I would love nothing more than to hammer him, even without Jackson Smith and Jigba, who we talked about earlier in the week, was unlikely to play despite the proclamations coming out of the program. It seemed like that situation was a little bit more nuanced than was getting out. We had shared that with our Buckeye Scoop members about some of the things. Again, we don't like to get into the injury stuff too much, but this was more kind of a general availability, weird situation where, you had a guy come back twice, get hurt both times. And that's another situation I've kind of gone back and forth on. Initially, I was a little bit more critical of the OSU medical staff for bringing him back twice and getting him hurt both times. But it's hard. You got a kid like Jackson who really wants to play, and he's pushing to get out there on the field. And with these soft tissue injuries, it's hard sometimes to get a real exact diagnosis. That's why Jackson went down to see Dr. Andrews this week in Florida, and apparently the news out of that was generally positive, even though he won't play this week. So I'm optimistic we'll see him on the field in the future. But for today, he's just going to be at home cheering and hopefully cheering with the rest of us and hopefully cheering a big Buckeye victory.
Yeah, I have to say I kind of agree with your prediction. So I'll be a little bit more bullish. I'll say 31-17. I will say that a lot of the insight and discussion around JSN you found on Buckeye Scoop earlier this week, it seemed to me that Ryan Day was sort of circumventing the issue, saying that he was on a pitch count. I mean, we all saw him run off the field. There's clearly an issue there. So I'm personally fine with him taking some time off. I think it's important he gets healthy for these final few games. But I feel like as the week progressed, I've become a little more worried with this game because it always is Penn State's sort of Super Bowl playing Ohio State. And I know it's not a night game whiteout, but they're going to bring it today. And as part of that, there was some interesting discussion around the crowd noise. And, Penn State has a reputation of pumping in some noise and some volume through their speakers, which actually isn't from the crowd. It's white noise. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's fair? And if it is fair, should Ohio State maybe be kicking up the notch a little bit to level the playing field compared to some the other Big Ten stadiums and what they're doing to create a competitive advantage?
Well, Penn State's kind of alone. They're kind of an outlier in terms of doing this. Like it's been one of those open secrets in college football because when you go if you go to different places like I have, and I don't say I've been everywhere, but I've been to a lot of stadiums, and it's just it's hard to reconcile them generating that much noise in an open air stadium, and it just seems you almost feel it in your chest, and it kind of builds. And the only explanations I've heard from people that have been there, that from myself who's been there, from other people that have experienced it multiple times, I've only experienced it once, is that they have to be bringing in something, something artificial. And would Ohio State ever do something like that? No, but it's Penn State. I mean, a lot of weird things go up, and Happy Valley is kind of a weird place. It's very isolated. They've always kind of seen themselves in kind of a different kind of light as a result of that. And as a result, I think something like this kind of this institutionalized. Is it cheating? Yeah, they're definitely. It's definitely against the rules. But I absolutely believe that they do it because I just can't believe that they can generate that much noise just by yelling. And again, I've been up to Seattle for the Seahawks, where they have the best home field in the NFL, and it does not compare to what goes on up at Penn State. And
Really?
that's just and it's great. And that place is loud, and it's a different kind of noise. That's why like I said, I've been to all these stadiums, and you can feel loud, even 130 decibels or whatever. But this just feels different because you feel it, and I think that can only be mechanically generated.
Are there any concerns, like, because if you think about CJ's career at Ohio State, I mean, he's had a few road games, but obviously Michigan last year, but I don't think anything even comes close to this as far as the crowd and the atmosphere. This will be an interesting test. Obviously, CJ, one of the most talented, if not the most talented quarterback in Ohio State history, but sort of the small minority of fans, a little bit of pushback on his tenacity and toughness at times. I feel like this will be a really good opportunity for him to prove it in a very hostile environment. At least from my standpoint, like, nothing comes close to this. I know Michigan gets loud, and it's obviously the game, but it seems like this Penn State game will be his toughest challenge as far as an atmosphere in his career.
Well, yeah, and no matter what you do to try to tell these guys to prepare for this, it's not the same. It's not. It's going to be louder than they think. It's going to be different. It's going to be more confusing. And so for a team that hasn't experienced it, and like you said, CJ Stroud's never experienced anything quite like this before, and so it's going to be interesting to see how he holds up. And that's frankly is one of my concerns. Why I think the game will be a little bit closer, because I just think the atmosphere can be overwhelming, and if they have some early success, if Clifford's able to use his legs and extend some drives, and he's a guy that's been around for a long time. Their quarterback's been around 6 years, 7 years. I mean, whatever it's been, he seems like he's been around forever. And if we've talked about some of the things that that have been challenges for us in the past, it's been the running quarterbacks, and they break contain and break our back with thing, and Clifford will absolutely do that. So it's not going to be like Iowa, where the quarterback is just throwing the ball right to our guys. So. It's going to be a heck of a game. I think we're gonna find out an awful lot about this Ohio State team, more so than we probably have in all the other games combined this year, and that's why I'm so excited. I can't wait for kickoff, and really excited to watch the game.
Yeah, we're getting close to kickoff. Also on the availability report, obviously we talked about JSN, but Cameron Brown out again, and probably an under the radar player that's at long snapper Bradley Robinson. Ryan Day has said he expects Mason Arnold to fill in. Let's hope that's one we don't notice today, but I think that what is he, a seventh year college student, Bradley Robinson, missing this game. Something to be concerned about, and certainly on the radar, right?
Well, after last week with the college team, and I'm sorry, I can't remember. I posted about it, but I can't remember exactly what team it was. But he literally sailed 4 punts over his punter's head for 4 safeties. The first time it's ever happened in college football history. So yeah, long snapper is a position that you don't notice until you notice it. And so let's watch the first long snap back, or let's hope we have no punts at all and not even have this be an issue. But
I don't think
yeah,
Michigan punted actually. So
yeah,
that's a metric in my head. I'm watching for that.
yeah. No, let's have to go for no punts and hopefully nothing eventful on the special teams.
Well, on a positive, the availability report, Tyler Friday is returning, so that'll be nice to see. So let's get to. I have some props for you for this game. We talked about the line at minus 15.5, but let's go through some of these. So first of all, I'm going to take the under here. The over under for the game is 61. That was as of a few hours ago this morning. Thoughts on that over under? I mean, I guess you already made your score prediction, so I kind of know where you stand there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be under, and I think I might have even been generous with the. I think I probably like your score better than my score. I mean, 21 is really giving Penn State a lot of credit and taking away from our defense, and maybe that's the right thing. But this game just feels underish to me. I mean, it would not shock me at all to see this be a 24-7 game or so. I think this game could go really under. Um, I don't. I see very few paths to this being an overish shootout type of affair. That just doesn't make sense to me. Now, obviously anything can happen in betting, but this just feels underish to me for sure.
All right, so let's get to the receivers. We had Emeka at over and under for receiving yards at 78.5 and Marvin Harrison Jr. at 87.5. So they're predicting a little bit higher for Marvin Harrison Jr., but both kind of around that 80 mark. Who do you envision having a big game in the Ohio State receiving core?
Well, I think I would go with Mecca over, and I'd go with Marvin under. I think Marvin's going to see a lot
Joey Porter Jr.
Joey
Yeah.
Porter Jr. And some people don't think much of Joey. Some people that I have a lot of respect for don't think much of Joey. I do think a lot of. I've seen him play. I've seen him play since he was a little kid, and I think he's a really big time talent. And there's been some questions with Marvin about how he does with aggressive in your face man to man off the line coverage. Well, he's going to see a lot of that today. So we're gonna find out. But if I was betting those player props, I'd go Emeka over and Marvin under.
It does seem like this could be a game also for Julian Fleming to break loose a little bit, right? So he's probably going to have that number 3 corner on him, had that big touchdown in the last game. It seems like he's turning the corner. I'm pretty excited for him. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe he's kind of like a touchdown machine. So I'm predicting you're going to see him reel in a touchdown today.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I think the hidden guy is Cade Stover. I think Cade Stover is going to feast. I think they're going to feed him early and often, and I think he's. I'm not saying he's been the forgotten man the last couple weeks, but the first 3 weeks they were absolutely featuring him and
Yeah.
throwing him virtually every play. It seemed like. I think you're going to see a return to that today. I think Cade's going to have a big game for Ohio State. And if there's a player prop on his receiving yards or something, I know there's a player prop on him to score the first touchdown at 19-1. I think that's an interesting one to jump on as well.
Yeah, I think it was Bill Green jumped on that one, I believe. He talked
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
and Bill's been Bill's the master of these obscure props. So yeah, I'm absolutely tailing him on that one.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, with JSN out, not a lot of depth, and I think Jaden Ballard's a little banged up too. Not a lot of depth in the receiving core, so might see a little more like 12 personnel. See some tight ends. It'd be great to see what Cade does in this game. He seems like a guy who's like built for this kind of environment too. So I'm excited to see what Cade does. So it's going to be interesting. I think this game is going to be a little bit more of a chess match. Penn State. They started the year and they had a really strong run defense, and that seems to have gone awry. Obviously, Michigan ran all over them. Do you think this is a game that Ryan Day is going to commit to the run, or is it possible that he's going to kind of go back to dabbling with the run, but ultimately like focusing on trying to get the throwing game going and CJ really moving the chains?
Yeah, well, it's a game that's going to stream for the run, but the form. I mean, Iowa, even though they gave up 54, it's so funny we talk about Iowa having cracked the code or whatever. Even though they gave up 54 points. I mean, I think what Penn State's going to do is they're going to sell out to stop the run like Iowa did. We broke it down a number of times through the week where Iowa was sending 7, 8, 9 guys to stop the run and play press man on the outside. And so it's one of those situations where Ryan's got to run opportunistically. Michigan ran all over these guys, and I think our offensive line's every bit as good, if not better, than Michigan's, and our running backs are way better than Michigan. So I think this is a game that's going to call for running, but not running into mass fronts. If you see them coming in there and bringing that overhang guy in, you stinking up that safety, playing that zero coverage, then you got to pass and you got to punish them for doing it. And I think Ryan Day did not have a great day last week play calling. I think he'd probably be the first one to admit that. But he's a master play caller, and there's nobody I'd rather have calling the offense for Ohio State than Ryan Day. He's going to get a chance to do it today, and I hope he does it and does it well.
Yeah. So with speaking of the running game, so Penn State against Michigan, they held them in check. And then they would pop these big runs. This seems like a game potentially tailor-made for Trevion Henderson. His over-under is at 84.5 yards. That's one I think I'm going to take the over. This seems like a game he's going to pop a big one and bill for him.
Yeah, I think Trevion could. This could be a big one. I think he could go for 150, 200. I think he could have a monster game because especially when they run those, Texas zero coverage run blitz. It's like, if he breaks through the initial line, he is gone, and nobody on Penn State's going to catch him. So, I like that prop a lot, and I think that he could have a big game. And he's had kind of an up and down year this year, and I'm a huge Trey fan. There's no bigger fan of Trey than I am, but he's had kind of up and down year. This is a chance for him to kind of right the ship and do some things, and I think he will. I think he's going to have a big game.
Absolutely, and yeah, it was funny just hearing Joel Klatt talk about cracking the code versus Ohio State, and obviously he talked about last year Michigan and the Oregon game. I don't think it's not really comparable, right? We're talking about a totally different defense, and then Iowa cracking the code, and yeah, that was a blowout. So interesting kind of where they're at. So let's turn it over to the defense today. Any concerns going against this Penn State offense? We feel like their offense it's not particularly explosive, but it's a solid offense. Is this Jim Knowles' biggest test this year?
I think it is for sure his biggest test. Again, just because of the environment. You're not going to get any calls. Franklin's going to be screaming at the refs all the time. They're going to get away with holding. They're going to do stuff, and they've got a clever quarterback. Clifford's better than people think. I think Clifford can make throws. Clifford can scramble. Clifford can get them out of bad plays and out of bad formations. So, I think this is going to be a good, solid test for us. But it's not. But is it insurmountable? Not at all. This is a defense, an offense that we should throttle, and we can throttle. We're a very, very good Ohio State defense. I think this is a statement game for us to find out how much we've improved from last year. We've all seen with our own eyes how much more coherence and rationality and structure there is to the defense. We're going to get a chance to see all that on display today against Penn State, and I think last year when we talked about things going wrong, like when we talked about the Oregon game, how much went wrong over the offense? The offense, I can't remember how many yards the offense went for in the Oregon game.
They threw for a lot of yards in that game.
It was a ton. It was a ton. And in the Michigan game, same thing. We scored, how many points did we score? The games last year were lost on defense. Last year it was 7.5 yards a carry a game for the Michigan game, 9 yards a carry in the second half. Against the Oregon game, they kept running the same play and we couldn't stop it. So, I think defensively we're just so much better and so much better off. But we're going to get a chance to show that off today against Clifford. I think if they can stop the quarterback run and stop him from scrambling, especially on second and third down, that I think Ohio State should be in control and hopefully have a much easier game than I've been anticipating.
Yeah, I think probably Toledo's quarterback was an even bigger test. So Clifford in his 25th year at Penn State should be a little bit of a challenge when he gets out and running, but a good, really good prep for Michigan and McCarthy, who's pretty mobile as well. Is there a player on the Ohio State defense you expect to have a big game? I think it's easy to, and this is sort of a safe pick, but I feel like Mike Hall in that environment, I'm really looking forward to seeing him get turned loose.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's a guy that, if you remember, we were talking about him through the summer when nobody really knew who he was, and or very few people knew who he was, and boy, he's been a high impact guy. Just I mean, you can when you talk about him now, and you talk about potential All American type of you know notoriety. It's not a joke anymore. People know like, wow, yeah, this guy really could leave here as an All American. The guy I'm looking for to have a big game is Steele Chambers. I think Steele with his speed. And you got to imagine they're going to have him spying Clifford, kind of running side to side. I mean, Tommy's going to have a big game. You know that for sure. But I think Steele's kind of the key for that defense. Keep that quarterback in check. Be able to run him down when he eludes the pocket. And the defensive backs have just got to hang in there. With no Cam Brown too, you're down a few pints. Penn State doesn't have particularly explosive guys on the outside, but they can throw it and they can catch it. And like I said, in that environment, every time you get a little handsy, Penn State's going to be screaming, and the refs are going to be influenced to throw flags. And don't think that makes a difference, because it does. It makes an absolute difference. So I think we're going to have every bit of adversity thrown at us today, and we'll see how these young guys do. But I'm cautiously optimistic.
Perfect. So, question from the chat. I don't know if you want to put an exact number on it, but how many sacks and pressures are you expecting today on Clifford? Are these guys going to be causing havoc, or do you think the Penn State line's going to hold up?
I think Clifford's going to be getting rid of it quickly, and I think they're going to be moving him around. So I don't think it's going to be a sack-a-rama. And again, I really hope I'm wrong. I hope we have 15 sacks, and everybody's like, Nevada, you're so dumb. But I'll say we get him a couple times, but we'll pressure him a bunch. We'll squeeze the pocket. We'll pressure him a bunch. We'll get in his face a lot, and hopefully force him into some bad throws. But I don't think it's going to be sack-a-palooza. So I'll say 2 sacks for the OSU defense in a really solid defensive effort.
Got it. So we've seen some discussion and sort of insights around the cornerback room on Buckeye Scoop. Denzel Burke, really kind of an up and down year. Do you think this is a game where he comes out and shines again?
Yeah, he's trending up. We had an update from the helping technician. We had some information that I had not heard, and actually was pretty encouraging to me. Talking about how Denzel's really starting to come along, and that's really great news. You're talking about a kid that we had high hopes for last year that really kind of came out of nowhere and played really well. But HT saying he's trending up, and when HT talks, I definitely listen, and I would encourage everybody else to definitely listen as well. So it sounds like he's on the he's been on the mend, getting a little bit more focused, kind of getting out of his head, and really looking good in practice, and hopefully that translates to a big game today up in Happy Valley.
Absolutely. So speaking of players that expect to have a good game, Zach Harrison's been on quite a tear lately. Do you expect that he's going to continue that today? Because I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I do. I think Zach's, sometimes we talk about when the light goes on for guys, and we've always used that expression, and I think the light's gone on for Zach. I think he's finally figured out the tempo, figured out the style, figured out the bend that he needs to play with to really make an impact at the college level. And we've been waiting for it because he's got every measurable that you'd want. I mean, when you see this kid in the 10-yard dash and the shuttle and the cone drill, I mean, you look at him and you go, how's this guy not a first-round pick in the NFL draft? And it just has not translated to the field. But lately, he's starting to figure out. And when kids do that, watch out. So, I expect to see a big game out of Zach. And I expect to see the rest of the season to be big for him, because he's been super impactful. They've been moving him all over the line. They've been moving him on the nose. They've been moving him to the 3 technique. They've been moving the edge. They've been moving him. They've been overloading his side. They've been dropping him back. And he's starting to really come. And that's really good news for an Ohio State defense that needs him to be impactful, and he has been, and I expect for that to continue today.
Yeah, let's hope so. That a lot of fun to see that D-line get after Clifford. Turning elsewhere in college football today, so unfortunately Michigan State is sort of disappointed this season, but tonight at 7:30 we have 7:30 Eastern, Michigan versus Michigan State. Do you think there's any chance that, I guess, Michigan State can kind of continue their good luck and good play against Michigan, or is this one going to be over pretty quick?
I think this one's going to be over pretty quick. And Michigan State's awful. The whole Big Ten's awful. I mean, you really look at it, and it's uh, it's sad to say, but I mean, other than Michigan's legit. Michigan's legit. Even though I still am convinced that we're going to boat race them. I thought they were legit when we scored 62 against them in 2018. I just don't see much else. I mean, Illinois is a little better than people thought, but these other teams that have been traditionally good. I mean, look how bad Iowa was so impossibly bad, and Michigan State kind of falls in that category as well. So no, there's no magic. There's no continue the curse. I think Michigan goes on their revenge tour continues, and they go out there and hammer. Yeah, exactly. They're gonna bring out those old revenge tour sweatshirts or whatever it is, the Chase Winovich sweatshirts, and I think they hammered Michigan State.
Yeah, I think he still thinks it was a mirage. I believe that was his quote.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about these Big Ten games, but honestly, the slate, you got Rutgers, Minnesota, Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, Michigan State, Michigan. Not a lot of exciting things to talk about in that slate. I did see earlier on Fox an interesting statistic. They said that this Ohio State team is on pace for the highest points per game in the Big Ten in the last 100 years. They're currently at 49.6. I think the second place team is only a few decimal points away. So, I don't know if we're going to be able to maintain that, but I guess kind of looking at the last 5 or 6 years since Ryan Day has gotten involved in the program, the offense has gone to a new level. But at this point, do you view this as the best Ohio State offense, let's say, in the college football playoff era?
It's so hard to say because I was a big Justin Fields fan, and I think that what that offense did against Clemson. I wish that we had just given them a semi-competent defense to work with, because I don't know how you compare to that one. I mean, Olave and Wilson in their prime, Justin Fields with his tremendous escapability, great arm talent. Yeah, so I think it's tough, but at the end of the day, I've always said your numbers, you are what your numbers say you are. So let's see if they continue it on. Let's hopefully we lay 50 on Penn State today and keep the streak going.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And now that we're seeing Olave and Wilson in the NFL, I mean, those guys are elite NFL wide receivers. They have been since day one. Pretty amazing the talent they had. And, I'm kind of thinking about Olave. I feel like we're hitting a lot of these like 20-yard plays. Marvin Harrison Jr. is making some incredible catches. Stroud's like fitting the ball in there on some tough plays. But it doesn't seem like we have – I guess you had Julian Fleming last week, had the big touchdown. But I don't know if we have like that Olave threat, and we probably underestimated how truly incredible he was as a deep threat. Do you see someone in the receiving group that could potentially step up as like a deep play threat today?
Like you said, the guy you'd be looking for maybe to get some help on that to come out of nowhere, kind of like Olave did his freshman year, would be like a Jaden Ballard. But, it's like you're not, everybody's not healthy. So you've got really limited options. You've got really, I'm not saying we have possession receivers because these guys are anything but possession receivers. But, short of a Mecca taking off the top of the defense, we don't really have a lot of those guys that can do that. I mean, Julian's done it, but he's not a classic blow the top off a defense. So it does, it makes it a little bit more difficult on your offense because you don't have that big play wide receiver. But hey, we've done so well so far. But no, I don't see that big over the top guy like Olave and Wilson. Those guys were both they spoiled us for sure.
Yeah, Tyler in the chat brings up a good point. It's hard to consider this the best offense if CJ refuses to run. So I know, we keep bringing this up every week. We can't help ourselves. But is this the week that CJ maybe pulls the ball and grabs some yards there, or is it going to be more of the same?
I'm going to keep predicting that it is the week because eventually I'll be right. So yeah, I know he gets coached about this. I know that they do a lot with that. What I would say is I think this could be the week that we see tempo. I think tempo is a great equalizer in terms of crowd noise, rhythm. keeping the offense on track. So I'd like to think that they're going to be running. They practice the heck out of that as well. So I think maybe we'll see a little bit of CJ running. Maybe he'll run opportunity. Maybe he'll break one. If he does, whenever he runs, I want everybody in Buckeye to stand up and cheer and say Nevada said he would do it. So it's kind of like it's like Tinkerbell. We can bring Tinkerbell back to life. We can bring CJ Stroud running. We'll all cheer and hold our little hands. But I think we'll see tempo, and I think Ohio State's going to try to play a little bit faster this week and do that as a way to kind of equate some of the try to take some of the exoticness out of the Penn State defense and try to calm the crowd noise down. So I think today's going to be a great test. I have not been so excited for the games all this year. It's been kind of like, okay, today I'm genuinely geeked, so I can't wait.
Yeah, I think I had the same sort of excitement for Notre Dame because at the time we thought Notre Dame might actually be pretty good. But yeah, I haven't really had that feeling until now too, and I love that it's on the road. It's going to be a great test. The one thing they do also with tempo, it seems we talked a little bit about like pumping in the artificial noise, but it seems like they also will keep it like the music going a little bit longer than they should. So tempo sort of removes that. But I don't know if you've seen in the past, like Penn State will, when they're on defense and the offense is out there, like they're literally snapping the ball and the music's still playing. So I don't know if they've ever been flagged for that. It does seem like something unique to Penn State and Happy Valley.
Well, just again, you got to remember when you kind of wind the clock down and let the crowd kind of realize the clock's going down 8, 7, it kind of builds to a moment. You know what I'm saying? And that's the whole thing. Offensively, you want to avoid letting the crowd kind of build up to those crescendos and making it just impossible to call plays. And tempo's a good way to kind of mess with that. And I think we're going to see a liberal dose of that today. I certainly hope so. Like I said, they've been practicing it. I hope they have the courage to roll it out.
Yeah, there's actually, I don't know if you've seen it on YouTube or if you saw it live, but there's a video of their whiteout game against Michigan, the first play from like a few years ago. And I have to say, it's pretty intimidating. They go out there, the music is playing, the crowd's going crazy, and of course they have Michigan has a delay of game on the first play of the game, right? And so that just can't have a start like that, but that really got their crowd going. So it should be an exciting environment. Looking kind of, I guess, back to the Big Ten, it seems like the most surprising team this year would be Illinois. So they have Nebraska today. Do you actually think outside of, I guess, the big three of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State that Illinois is the biggest threat in the Big Ten this year?
I mean, I do. You use the word threat kind of liberally, but no, I think they're better. I mean, they're better, and they're a team definitely to keep an eye on. I think they're, if you're looking for that kind of that sleeper team to kind of come out there and sneak wins and kind of be there at the end, I think Illinois is a team that could do that. They're not bad. They're not bad and getting better. And I got to tip my hat to them because I didn't think they were going to be much at the beginning of the year, but they're one team that's definitely improved over the course of the season and definitely a solid group.
So right now, I don't know if you have Big Noon kickoff on. So CJ Stroud leading the FBS with 28 touchdowns. Today, his over-under for touchdowns is actually at 3.5. So 3.5 is a lot. So, you got to get 4 passing touchdowns. What do you think about that one? And is that an over you would take, or being a little bit more conservative here on the score given the road environment?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you've got two. Again, we talked about those two forces kind of battling here. You've got on one hand, Ohio State's got a lot of other weapons on the ground and can score a lot of different ways. But Ryan Day has been force feeding CJ, to get those stats to kind of build that thing because he really wants that Heisman winner, and it's manifested itself in terms of playing him way later in games than we would ever dream that he would. Games that have been out of touch, situations that we wouldn't think he'd be throwing. He's throwing. So I think you have to go over, even though that feels undery to me. But I think you'd have to go over just because they seem bound and determined that anytime they're getting around the goal line, that they're going to be throwing because they want to pad those numbers, and they want him to win the Heisman. And Ryan Day wants to have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
They do keep him in a little longer than you'd expect. I think the dream scenario today, if we get up to a big lead and they get to bring in McCord, because we actually have some guys that I guess sort of shunned Penn State, picked Ohio State. So obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyle McCord, same high school, heavily recruited by Penn State, ended up picking Ohio State. And then, of course, Julian Fleming, who's the number one receiver recruit coming out of Pennsylvania. I'm sure those are guys that are looking for a big game. I think Julian Fleming, especially because, injuries have, the perception was that maybe he was a bust, which is unfair because it's been totally, that perception was built around, injuries, which, he seems to be turning the corner on that right now. So he still has a lot to prove, and I think it could be a fun coming out party for him if he gets to do it against Penn State.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to be super motivated to do so. And, with McCord, you'd like to think he'd be able to get in there and do some things. But again, the way that these seasons been running with Ryan and with Ohio State, you have a feeling CJ's going to be in there to the bitter end, throwing to the bitter end and trying to make the numbers as big as possible.
Yeah, and then sort of the reverse scenario is also true, I guess, for them. Do you think there's any chance we see Drew Aller in this game?
A chance, sure, but like you said, Clifford's a wily 25-year veteran of college football, and so I don't think we'll see him anytime when it matters. Maybe taking a knee at the end if Ohio State's so far ahead and they just want to stop the bleeding. But no, I don't think we'll see him. Short of an injury, never rid an injury for anybody. But I think this is going to be the Clifford show, and he's good. Clifford's not bad. Clifford's he'll never be anything in the NFL. He'll never be anything at the next level. But as a college quarterback goes, he's not awful, and got to keep him under control.
Sounds good. So kind of going back to receivers, when we first started, we talked a little bit about JSN, and there were insights and some discussion earlier in the week on Buckeye Scoop that he was probably not going to be playing. I've seen some sort of divergent opinions on him coming back at all this year. I know, again, you kind of have a policy of not diving into injuries and respecting the privacy there, but do you think we're going to see him play again this year? I mean, this is not a Nick Bosa situation, is it?
I think we'll see him this year. I think he plays. I think we'll see him. I don't know when that will be, but I actually think it'll probably be sooner than people think. But I do think we see him this year, and I don't think this is a Bosa situation.
Got it. And then how about we have a question in the chat. How about the running back room with Mayan and Trey? Are they both healthy and good to go? It seemed like Trey had a little bit of a extra boost in his step recently, and that'd be good to see if he can get through a whole game and a physical game without sort of limping to the sideline, which honestly it seems like happens quite a bit with him. So I'm hoping those guys are ready to roll in physical game, and they pop some big ones today.
Yeah, like I said, Trey's just Trey's got to toughen up. He's starting. People are starting to notice, and when I talk about people, I'm talking about people like NFL people are talking about, hey, wow, this guy comes out of the game a lot. And as a running back, that's already running back's a hard position. You think about the running back position, you're getting hit every single play, and every single play is ended up on the ground, which is hard with multiple people piling on top of you. I don't know how anybody plays it and doesn't get injured all the time.
Yeah, but it's incredible.
It's incredible. But it's the nature of the position, and that's what comes with it. But he's got to toughen up. I know they've been on him about that because they felt like he might have pulled himself a little early. But again, it's hard with injuries because you don't know what's going on, inside a guy's body. You don't know what's, are you injured? The classic, are you injured or are you hurt? They feel like he's been hurt a little bit, but maybe not injured. And, I think they're trying to, kind of get a handle on that and trying to figure out what they can do to kind of keep him in the games a little bit longer and maybe, not have him come out so much and really be able to make an impact.
Well, he certainly has a good example next to him, Mayan Williams. I mean, he's just trucking guys. That guy is tough. So anyways, we are about 15 minutes away from kickoff. We are probably going to be doing a post-game show as well, so I'd encourage you guys to join. See, Urban Meyer's got his sunglasses on. We're ready to go. And that's all I got for now, Nevada. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to touch on, but we'll continue to do these live pregame shows. Please submit your questions. We'll incorporate it into the conversation. But really excited. This is going to be a great game. And, go Bucks. And hope everyone stays injury-free. But I think that's all we got for today. And we'll let you guys turn it over to the kickoff.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. And I'd encourage everybody to try to join maybe the watch party if Kirk's going to have one. He may be doing a simulcast watch party during the game. So lots of Buckeye Scoop coverage all day, pregame, during the game, and after the game.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Go Bucks.